George Foreman had been in Zaire for days when he noticed something strange. People on the street weren't shouting his name. There were no posters with his face, no children running after him asking for autographs. The world champion, the man who destroyed opponents in 2 or 3 rounds, seemed invisible. Meanwhile, Muhammad Ali arrived in the country, and the airport erupted in chants. Ali, Bamai, Ali, kill him, in the local language. Foreman didn't know it, but this battle was already lost long before he stepped into the ring. Ali didn't fight with just his fists. He knew that the mind was a boxer's sharpest weapon and that victory could be sealed long before the first blows were exchanged. Upon landing in Zaire, he didn't seek the comfort of a luxurious hotel. He took to the streets, walked through the sweltering heat, shook calloused hands, looked people in the eye, and spoke to them in a language they understood. "I am like you," he repeated. "He is a foreigner who doesn't know his land. I will fight for you." Soon the entire country believed that Muhammad Ali was not just a boxer, but their representative against a distant and cold enemy. Foreman, on the other hand, had a different approach. He arrived surrounded by security guards, wearing headphones, avoiding contact. For him, it was just another fight. For Ali, it was a culture war. While the champion spent his days training in silence, Ali turned every hour into a spectacle. He invented phrases, rhymed provocations, and delivered improvised speeches in front of the cameras. Foreman trained to face a body. Ali trained to break a mind. In the gym, the difference was even clearer. Foreman would hit the heavy bag, the sound echoing like gunshots. There, on the other hand, he spent more time laughing with reporters than sweating in training. When he saw cameras, he'd do push-ups, as if joking, always with a smile on his face. It was a perfect trap to let Foreman believe he wasn't taking the fight seriously. Behind the scenes, he studied his opponent's every move, every mistake, every heavy breath during the training rounds. At night, while Foreman was isolating himself, Ali would appear on local radio shows, reciting improvised poetry and telling funny stories about his life. But in the middle of each joke, he would drop a taunt. "Foreman is slow. Foreman gets tired. Foreman has never felt the pain of a true warrior." These words weren't just for the audience, they were meant for Foreman to hear, repeated by everyone around him, and it worked. Within days, Foreman couldn't take a step without hearing his name followed by "You're going to lose." On Wayne Day, Ali landed his hardest blow yet. He looked Foreman in the eye, smiled, and said, "You're big, but I'm the story, and stories are no match for muscle." Foreman didn't respond. He tried to keep a straight face, but silence was Ali's victory. He knew he had gotten inside the champion's head. That night, the entire city echoed the same chorus, "Ali Bomet, Ali Bomet." Foreman tried to sleep, but the chant echoed through the walls. It was as if the country itself had chosen the winner, even before the opening bell. There, in the hotel room, he heard the chorus and smiled. He knew Foreman's body was still intact, but his confidence had already been marked by the first cut. And the most curious thing, no punches had been thrown. We'll see how Ali turned this psychological advantage into a fighting strategy that defied all expectations, and how every word spoken outside the ring shaped every second inside it. Chant of Ali Bomet wasn't just noise. It was a constant reminder to George Foreman that he was in hostile territory. Every workout, every walk, every moment of rest was invaded by voices shouting not for the champion, but for the challenger. Foreman, accustomed to entering arenas with the crowd in his favor, or at least neutral, now felt the psychological weight of being alone. It was like fighting 2 opponents, Ali and an entire country. Ali knew that to win, he needed to transform that pressure into a noose, slowly tightening around Foreman's neck. He wasn't just trying to provoke, he was creating narratives. In interviews, he called Foreman a monster who didn't understand the heart of the African people, who only knew how to destroy, not build. "He hits hard, but he's never hit the soul of a man like me," he would say with a calculated smile. These phrases were simple, yet loaded with meaning. They made the audience identify with Ali and, at the same time, planted the seed of doubt in Foreman's mind. In the training ring, Ali would begin simulating situations that would irritate Foreman. He would deliberately let his sparring partners land harder punches, just to laugh and taunt. "Is that all you've got?" It was a rehearsal for what would happen on fight night. Foreman, for his part, trained as always, with explosiveness and brute force, but deep down, he already carried a tension he couldn't explain. Ali's key move was to turn his lack of preparation into bait. He ran less, trained less, and gave the impression he was out of shape. This led Foreman to believe he could knock him down early, as he had done with all his other opponents. But that was exactly what Ali wanted. an aggressive, impatient opponent, willing to expend all his energy in the early rounds. In the days leading up to the fight, Ollie ratcheted up his tone. At press conferences, he interrupted Foreman, spoke over him, and used jokes that drew laughter from the audience. One of the most cutting was delivered while staring at the champion. "He's so slow that if I throw a punch now, he'll only defend himself tomorrow." The room erupted in laughter. Foreman tried to maintain his composure, but the slight clenching of his teeth betrayed that the provocation had hit home. On the eve of the fight, Ali delivered his final blow outside the ring. He appeared on the hotel balcony, waved to the crowd, and began chanting "Ollie Bome" along with them. The chant spread through the city like wildfire. Foreman heard it from the other side, in the silence of his room. There was no escape. The fight hadn't even started yet, but for Ali, the first part of the war was already won. He had transformed Foreman from predator to prey, without the champion even realizing it. And if you're enjoying this story, here on the channel, we bring you much more than just fights. We tell the wars that happen before the bell even rings. So leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because in the next chapter, you'll discover how Muhammad Ali did something that seemed like boxing suicide and turned it into victory. If this story has already captivated you so far, imagine what comes next. Muhammad Ali's fight against George Foreman didn't start in the first round, and what he did inside the ring will surprise you even more. So, if you want to continue following this battle that changed boxing history, like it now, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. That way, you won't miss the next chapter of this war where every word, every look, and every movement counted as much as a punch. The first minute said it all. Ollie leaned against the ropes with a smile that irritated and confused. Foreman came like an avalanche, testing ribs, arms, shoulders, seeking to shatter the man who challenged him to hit harder. Each blow felt like thunder trapped in the stadium, but Ollie absorbed it with forearms and short clinches, stealing seconds in the referee's ear, breathing like someone counting steps in the darkness. "Come on, big guy," he whispered. "I can handle it." The ropes gave, springy, as his body swayed, and the crowd beat in unison. Ollie Bome Foreman thought it was fear. It wasn't. It was a trap. Ollie's goal wasn't to win the first round. It was to drown George's confidence in his own breath, inch by inch, until his strength became dead weight. Foreman aimed for the head and found walls. He aimed for the body and sank into the ropes. He hammered as if he were nailing his rival to the past, trying to dismantle every laugh, every wink for the cameras. Ali, in turn, spoke between puffs of air. "Is that all? You get tired?" In the clinch, he pinned the back of George's neck, supported his weight, and whispered, "You hit hard, but you don't think." The phrases were simple but cutting. The audience became an amplifier. Ali Bome. The sound penetrated Foreman's joints like sand. He mistook noise for dominance, impact for control. Ollie took a sidestep, a sharp jab, another clinch, and another. Smile. It was a movie where the villain runs and the hero walks, and yet the hero arrives first. During the break, Two Worlds, Angelo Dundee, serene, placed the towel on Ollie's chest and said softly, "It's working. He's blowing." Ollie nodded, heard his lungs on the other side. Foreman's bench creaked. The trainer urged calm, but George wanted answers straight away. "He's not going down," he grumbled. "He's mocking." The bell cut off the conversation. Back in the ring, Ali repeated the pattern with cold precision. Ropes, high forearms, clinch, short jabs. With each separation from the referee, he stole half a breath, lodging another phrase in the champion's head. "You can't catch me. It's heavy, isn't it?" Foreman opened his arms and swept the air. He landed, of course, but he landed less than he needed and spent more than he could. By the third round, his eyes no longer shone as brightly. Shine turns to fog when doubt sets in. In the seventh, the sound of exhaustion came from George's mouth, rough as rust. The blows landed hard but late, and the crowd dictated the rhythm, which Ollie obeyed without haste. Ollie made two jabs, a short straight, shoulder on the ropes, clinch, and a small, almost childish laugh that said, "I'm home." Foreman rolled his shoulders again, hunted for the torso, and missed by a hand's breadth. Ollie felt the momentum shift, tested the center of the ring, and returned to the elastic shelter just to confirm. Yes, the giant was breathing heavily. The bell sounded. Ollie didn't sit down. He walked to his corner and said a single word. Now, the stadium understood before the champion, because sometimes, the fight doesn't end with a blow. It ends when a man realizes he's no longer in control of his own body. And the next bell would exact that price. The seventh round ended with Foreman exhausted, and the stadium still singing, as if every voice were a hammer on the anvil of his chest. Ollie leaned against the ropes again, arms raised, eyes smiling, and whispered the right venom. "You're slow. I'm new." It wasn't bravado, it was a scalpel. Foreman responded with 2 hooks to the body, heavy as iron doors. But he found forearms, found stretched canvas, found laughter. Every blow came at a cost. Every second of Ollie's time paid off. The heat plastered his shirts to his shoulders, the air felt thick, and the champion felt his throat scratched like sand. Outside, the chant beat, in time with his heartbeat. Ali May, his eyes searched for the center. They found ropes, they sought fear, they found calm, and calm, there was the harbinger of danger. In the minute's rest, the bench seemed small for a giant, and the towel didn't dry his doubts. Ollie took a breath, counted to 4, and decided, one more round of patience. Then the cut 8 began with the same deceptive dance. But something in the rhythm changed. Ollie wasn't just defending himself, he measured the giant's tempo by the choir's music. When Foreman advanced, Ali locked his neck in the clinch and whispered cutting words. "You're tired. George, I hear your heavy footsteps." The referee separated, and Ollie landed a short, sharp jab, a grain of sand in the eye. Foreman hit the body and felt the spring return. He wanted to double down, but the bet was already doubling down. Outside, the corners shouted instructions. But training the storm is useless when the wind is against him. Ollie.com offered the bait of the ropes, then declined. A sidestep, a tiny smile, like someone who knows the shortcuts in a burning city. Foreman gritted his teeth, tried to corner, shrugged, and gasped for air. His mind, accustomed to command, began to negotiate with his body, and lost. In the corner, Dundee held up 2 fingers. Patience and precision, reminder of a plan made for those who confuse strength with destiny. As the clock ticked down to the midpoint of the 8th, Ollie broke the pattern. He came off the ropes like someone opening a secret door and landed. A jab that stretched the invisible line between Foreman's eyebrows. Another jab, a short straight, and the champion felt the ground approaching for a second. Ollie recoiled, masked his haste, offered his shoulder, pulled a clinch, and stole air once more. Foreman rotated his hips for the hook, but his body obeyed. Late, the gasoline turned to smoke. Ollie heard the roar of emptiness, that sound only those who have been there recognize, strength calling for help. Then he planted his feet in the center and unleashed a 4-punch blast. Like someone writing their own signature on an ancient wall, Foreman's face gave way an inch, his knees half a step. The stadium vibrated differently, lower, thicker, like thunder about to fall. Ali saw a mirror, courage mixed with fatigue, instinct battling with fog. He smiled into her eyes and whispered, "Do you hear me now, George?" Now the silence speaks. Foreman tried to build the wall again, but the bricks were soft. Ollie stepped forward, threw a short cross. Another straight twisted his torso with the elegance of someone dancing in a minefield, and for a moment the world slowed. The champion's head shook, his eyes blinked for focus, and Ollie realized he no longer needed ropes or tricks. The final blow was psychological, merely disguised as a fist. Now, he repeated within himself, and unleashed a clean sequence, a clear pattern in the heavy air. George's leg sank as if the ring had turned to mud. He tried to grab onto the void, but the void offered no hand. The crowd turned to sea, and the sea pushed Ollie forward with a roar that seemed to blow wind through his gloves. Another crack, another blast of light on the giant's face. His legs gave way. His body tilted, and when gravity made the decision, his mind refused. The stadium held its breath. The bell didn't speak, but history did. Moments and legends are written, they exact a price. Foreman's body swayed like a whipped tree as Ollie stepped forward, locked his stance, and unleashed a short, clean sequence, drawn into the heavy Kinshasa air. A jab that cleared the way, a straight right that cracked the forehead, a short cross inside the thick arms, and the giant tried to tie up the void. The ropes, once a shelter, now seemed like witnesses. The chorus grew thick, ancient Ali Bomay. Ali didn't shout. He breathed. He saw the champion's gaze search the ground and took half a second longer to find it. Ollie leaned his shoulder, tilted his torso, and unleashed 2 more short shots, a precise machine, without waste. George's knees sank, his guard gave way, his strength turned to smoke. As gravity pulled, he fell in an arc, as if the ring were tilting. For an instant silence fell over the stadium, and in the silence, history fell. Ollie retreated half a step, giving space for the count to begin. The referee bowed, the hand drew the time. and the stadium held its breath until 9 at 10. Foreman tried to build the wall, but his body wouldn't sign the contract. His eyes sought focus, his legs spoke different languages, and the referee opened his arms to seal what gravity had already decided. The roar that followed seemed to lift the ceiling. Ollie didn't run, he didn't jump imaginary rope, he raised his arms and stood still, welcoming the sea that formed around him. On October 30th, 1974, in Kinshasa, a belt changed hands, but the story that was there was bigger than gold. The man everyone swore was finished had defeated an invincible champion not through brute force, but through the patience to break the other's trust, word by word, look by look. The chant that rocked the city became a victory trail. Ali Boumé wasn't just music, it was a verdict. And on Foreman's face there was the silence of someone who understood too late the kind of fight he had entered. George sat, breathed, and found no doors. There, on camera, he said he had heard how tired he was since early on. Victory wasn't just on the scoreboard, it was in the invisible script written at the airport. Ollie transformed the city into a mirror and made Foreman see, in every face, the question that corrodes giants: what if my strength isn't enough today? He created a simple, hard-to-ignore story. I'm one of you. He's all strength. He repeated it until it became truth. And when the truth changes sides, the body follows. He stayed on the ropes without seeming to surrender. Drew the thunder to the place where the elastic returned some of the impact. Trapped the back of his neck in clinches. Whispered phrases that won't wash away with water. Slowness, fatigue, doubt. Foreman's mind entered a windowless room, illuminated by the voices from the stands. Ollie understood that muscle without air is metal without fire, and that the hardest blow in boxing can be a well-timed smile. When he raised his arms, the message was clear. Winning begins with how you convince the other person to believe your story. In Zaire, Ollie wrote the narrative, before, during and after the gong. Perhaps this is the lesson that remains when the lights go out and the stadium becomes a memory. The fight begins long before the first punch. Ollie proved that presence, words, and patience can bend mountains that force cannot move. He didn't deny Foreman's greatness. He led it to a place where muscles grow heavy and certainties speak softly. He built alliances with simple people, turned a corner into a shelter, and used his own body as clever bait, without arrogance, without desperation. When the final blow landed, it was just a signature on the paper that was already written. For those watching, this is a warning. Stories win fights, and those who control the narrative control the air. If someone ever calls you finished, remember, Ollie, smile, conserve energy, listen to the time, and make the other carry their own weight. The mind comes first. The body merely confirms. Respect was not lacking. Foreman heard the end and maintained his dignity. The crowd sang softly, understanding that this was greater than gold. Winning is also convincing.